The government, at one time when the government wouldn't allow people to close down businesses, Government of India invited our family to take over an old and what was in those days called Sikh companies, called Parry, which I'm sure a lot of you, at least the older generation sitting in this room, will remember because of its sweets, at least the Parry sweets. Some of the younger generation may or may not know, but that's one of the products of this company. And it was a really Sikh company, started by a Welshman in the year 1788 and ran to the ground by the British after independence because they didn't want to leave anything behind. And then the Indians who took over were the Brown Sahibs, had run it down further, and there had been no investment in this company, capital investment in the company for over 18 years. But yet the Government of India, with 7,200 people at that time, in 1981-82, Government of India decided that this should not be allowed to be closed, and therefore somebody's got to take it and turn it around or transform it. And this is really where I believe corporate governance comes in. And we as a family were invited to do so because we believe governance pays. Governance did pay in E.I.D. Parry, and it took us exactly 2.5 years to turn it around from almost, amber in the funeral grounds to a company today which is very healthy, has over some 3,000, 4,000 crore turnover, and from the 7,200 people, we brought down the numbers in the first year to, at the time when we had no rights to close down and the laws were against us, we were able to bring down, with a human face, we were able to bring the numbers down to 3,000, almost within 12 months of takeover. So this is, and no strikes, no lockouts, no beating up, no violence. So this is where corporate governance starts playing a very important role. Basically, all you have to be is to be honest. Bad news is always suppressed. Unfortunately, the thing to do when you have bad news is to be able to go in the front as a leader. If you are a leader, worth your salt, go in the front and announce it yourself and take the responsibilities. I'm talking here to my young friends sitting at the back. Just don't be afraid. Just go in the front, take the responsibility and say, I am responsible for this bad news, and it's because of my strategies and my plans that failed that we are where we are. Just stand up and say that and accept it. It's amazing how people respond to you immediately and come back to your support to ensure that this can be done. So what I'm going to do is to just, this transformation that took place in E.I.D. Parry and how governance pays, I'm just going to give you a few examples that happens all the time, even today, I hope, in our group. You've got to set yourselves as examples yourself as a leader, which is exactly what I understand the whole morning and this afternoon, what Gandhi did. He did not hesitate being in the front. He did not hesitate being open and accepting that he'll provide the environment in which everybody else, every single person will act. And action is what he believed in. And that's all that you have to do. There's nothing very difficult. Once you make up your mind, you can do it. Once we do, the first job that I had to do when I went into this company after 2 years of our family taking over, because we still were running in losses, was to jack up the Mercedes-Benz car, which is there allotted for the managing director, and started driving my own little Fiat in those days to work. The second thing was there were 2 lifts in the Dare House, Paris Corner building. There were 36 people waiting for one lift to go up to work, and the other lift was waiting for me to go up. So I go and stand there on the 37th person. I said, I presume all of us have come to work in this place. And I think even before I'd gone into my office, the message went clear to everybody that they all have to come to work, not just come to mark their attendance. That was all that was done by me. Thereafterwards, just the people took over. Everybody started working. And there was nothing that you could stop them thereafterwards. a peon in the Bangalore office, here in our sales office and confectionery, calls up the vice president within 3 weeks of my taking over and says, "Sir, the manager had come to Madras at your call and he asked me to buy a first-class ticket and I couldn't get it." In those days, as you know, railway tickets was very difficult. Not that it's any different now, but I bought a second-class ticket and he came in the second-class ticket, but he's claimed first class now. But that's not what we understand are the values of this company. The vice president said, "Yes, you're right." So he asked the manager to fly in. The manager, who'd been with the company for 18 years, had to fly in with his resignation letter. The Gujarat earthquake, the manager selling tea had 15 tons of stock in the warehouse. Communications had totally failed. What does the manager do? He gets 2 lorries, loads them up, calls all the 8 salesmen, and moves the entire tea to Gujarat and starts setting up tea stalls and gave tea to every single person who came there. And who are the first guys to come? The police, of course, because they don't get tea and butter. These poor chaps. But the affected people were most thankful. But the manager took the decision. He didn't wait for headquarters to clear. He knew his action would be supported. Tsunami in Cuddalore, where we have our sugar factory. The day of tsunami, I happened to be in San Francisco. I didn't know about it because of the time change. So when I saw that in the TV, I rang up. They said, "Don't worry, it's all organized." What was organized? Every single worker, every single manager in the sugar factory, which is 18 miles away from Cuddalore, got together, opened the kitchen in the canteen, cooked enough food, hired enough lorries, went to every single village and said, "You stay at home, we'll come and distribute to you." Food was supplied there. They closed the factory down for 1 week and did exactly the same work for a whole week. And then told the management, all the group companies in the Murugappa group should work for 1 day, collect the money, and the management will provide equal amount or double that amount. They told the board that the management will provide double the amount of what the workers' wages will be for a day, and that money should go to Cuddalore, and they will ensure taking care of 6 villages which were under water. Again, the decisions were taken by the workmen because they knew nobody will question it. So, building trust is the most important thing. When we took over the sugar factory, the problem was the farmers, 25,000 farmers, had absolutely no trust in the management. So what do? How do you build trust? And this is where the young people come in fantastic. They're brilliant. They use technology. All they did was what is the lack of trust? There were 25 clerks in the weighbridge, right around the clock. And all these guys were on the take, because you can underweigh the lorry coming with sugarcane, overweigh for some and underweigh for the other. Totally, the total weight will come right, and they take money. So what did the young engineer do? He had the electronic weighing scale put in with a reader and connected that reader to the computer and all the 25 clerks were removed. There was a hue and cry with the union. We said, "We're not sending any of you away." So the manager decided, they had a big hall, they gave all the 25 people and the weighbridge clerks, they said, "You come and sit inside the hall, we'll bring you any magazine you want, any games you want, you play, and we'll pay you for that. We're not going to sack you, but the computer will take care of your job." The farmers you should see the smiles in the farmers, because they trusted the machine more than the man. These 25 guys didn't know what to do. So 1 month later, they said, we have no job, we're coming here to work and we must have work. So the manager said, oh, in the city office in Madras, there are not enough telephone directories. So they want telephone directories, and he brought a couple of copies and asked them to copy. In exactly a month's time thereafter, they came and 25 men came and said, we'd like to go home. Please give us an extra compensation and we'll all go home. And they all resigned within a month. The law hadn't changed, but the manager was empowered to do it, and he knew what to do. And he reduced 25 clerks just overnight. So what happens then if you do this? This spreads. The farmers who are supplying cane started getting so enthusiastic. The next year, the cane was coming out through the ears for everybody. So we had to crush for almost, instead of 6 months, we had to crush for 9 months. But at the same time, what was happening, the farmers were getting interested in this open communication system. And so much so, within a matter of 3 years from our taking over in 87, 88, Panruti municipality introduced a governance system, and later in 1993, they computerized it, which even today is probably the best governance system that is in existence anywhere. I've had students coming in from Harvard, Kellogg, and everywhere and studying it. They all accept that it's the best governance system. Transparency was the order of the day with the farmers, and this still holds good even today. So much so, it was very easy to run a sugar factory without any problem. I think the other thing, which is secularism, which Gandhi talked about, it's amazing how it spreads in most of these places. If you go to almost any factory, any office in the group, you'll find on Fridays there's a puja, but in the puja space there's a Christ, it depends on whomever wants to put whatever picture or whatever is thing, and Friday puja, everybody gets together and prays. I was totally surprised in 1988 at the bicentennial celebrations in one of the factories in Ranipet. I went there. Every single prayer was going on by the best of priests in that area. Hindu Vedic chanting was going on, hymns were going on in the church. The entire Ranipet, all the mosques were full of people. All our workers had organized the entire area having Thanksgiving for the turnaround of V.I.D. Parry and celebrating its 200th birthday. So that's what happens when you empower and you are given good governance. The other thing that happens, the turnaround, is they convert waste into wealth. The examples are plenty. I'll just take a couple of them. The sugar factory, which was in trouble because of the variations in the marketplace, they started saying, well, how do we convert? What are the wastes? Every single waste of the sugar factory within a matter of 4 years was converted. Cogenerations, way back in 20 years ago, we had cogeneration of 30 megawatts of power. Today, every sugar factory has it. But this was done 20 years ago. There was no subsidies at that time for these things. But these young engineers did it. They converted the press mud, which is a waste in a sugar factory, into biofertilizers. They converted the effluent into a biofertilizer. So there's tremendous amount. Now, every other sugar factory does it, but these were all done 20 years ago, quietly by young people who believed that they can contribute, who believed in action. And it doesn't matter. In fact, in the biofertilizer factory, when I was there, I remember, we spent about almost 20 crores to a design, and it was a disaster. All we did was to write it off and ask the engineer who designed it, have you learned your lesson? He said, of course I have. Now I want to design it again. And he did it, and this time it's working. Instead of sacking, normally one would have sacked the guy. So this is the kind of thing that can happen when you empower people and when you talk to them and say, we believe in you. The other thing is ethics. I think a lot has been talked about it. We are one of those, Parry used to be in the IMFL business, that is the Indian-made foreign liquor business. Unfortunately, we had to close it down. It could have been a money spinner, but we had to close it down. Why? Because the excise department insisted that they should have their cut. And that's not part of the family ethics or values, and therefore we had to close it down. The next time was the unfortunate one where I had to take our own chief minister to court when they gave us permission to set up an acetic acid factory, and they wouldn't allow us to transfer our alcohol, which we couldn't convert into IMFL, from one factory to another by refusing us transportation. They allowed us the factory, but they wouldn't allow us transportation of alcohol. So I said, fine, give me a reason. They couldn't give me. The file was sitting in the chief minister's office for over 3 months, and we were bleeding as a company. We didn't yield. We went to court, and 1 year later, we won our case. But we did bleed that 1 year. So, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I believe governance does pay. And it's not today, it's been going on for generations. As I said, my grandfather in 1924, when he earned enough money after taking care of his family, the first thing that he did was to build a hospital in our village. Today, we run 4 hospitals, 4 schools, and a polytechnic. And we're proud about it. We just don't run them and we don't put the money there. We spend our time. All our ladies are going there to ensure the quality of education, the quality of healthcare is as good as it can be. And so these are some of the things that we believe in, and we believe that if we continue with this kind of a thing and bring in the next generation, train them in some of these things, we should be able to sustain. We may not be the best, we may not be the biggest, we may not be the thing, but we will be able to sustain the family, sustain the values for which the family stands for, and hold our reputation and walk with our heads above our shoulders. And this, in conclusion, I'm sad to say of what we see around us today, whether it's a financial crisis in the United States or what we see around us even in this country. Our father of the nation, as early as October 1925, in the Young Indian magazine, wrote about the 7 sins: politics without principles, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, worship without sacrifice. I think this really is the balance sheet of any individual, any corporate or state or country. But what do we see around us? All of us are aware that every balance sheet has 2 sides, the left and the right. Liabilities and assets, respectively. Today, what we have, I'm sorry to say, on the left-hand side, there's nothing right. On the right-hand side, there's nothing left. Thank you very much.